Hello everyone, this is Manoj Uptani. I welcome you all on behalf of the Edupedia world. Let's mark the beginning of one new aspect wherein I'll be discussing with you some of the relevant topics relating to special audits. So what all will be consisting in such special audit, be it environmental audit, be it energy audit, be it risk-based audit, be it audit of mutual funds, be it about depositories, be it about indirect taxes audit. So all these aspects are going to get covered in this particular chapter. I will be covering this particular chapter in like approximately 4 to 5 different presentations so that you can get each and every bit of it, and all the aspects will be covered one after the other in order to make sure that you guys get the perfect learning. So are you guys all set? And are you guys revising your topics time and again, which is the most expected thing out of you? Absolutely. I do believe that definitely you are not going to disappoint me as far as your revision schedules are concerned. So do ensure that you revise your topics time and again along with understanding the concept from our side. Perfect, guys. Fasten up your seatbelts. We are about to take off with the first presentation and first topic of that, and which will be what is risk-based audit all about. So guys, you must have got an idea that audit is all about checking and taking care of risks. I had a boss in my life who used to tell me one thing that Manoj, if there is a risk in any of the segment, then only you can find out observation. If there is no risk, then there is no observation. So audit is all about checking out the possibility of risk, whether it's due to fraud or it's due to error. So any kind of risk that is going to affect your financial statements by showcasing or not reflecting basically the material misstatements. So risk based audit is essential to note. So in any kind of audit, whichever thing you do, okay, so you need to take care of the risk based approach in that. So what is risk based audit all about? Like always, first thing is first, let's understand the meaning. What does risk based audit actually mean? So guys, a risk based audit is particularly an approach that analyzes all the kind of audit risks. It basically helps you up in setting up the materiality threshold, the materiality limit based on the audit risk analysis and the development of audit programs appropriately by allocating a larger portion of audit resources to the high risk areas in any kind of business. For example, I'll tell you, if you see out any of the business and if you like tend to find out the accounting done for that business, and if you get to know that there are too many debit notes and credit notes have been made all during the year while conducting any of the business, then it's a high risk area. If in any company you can see like the possibility and the probability of this debit notes and credit notes is extremely high, then that means that there is some kind of problem going on in the company. So this should actually strike up your professional skepticism, that questioning mind as to why there are so many debit notes and credit notes in this particular area. So you need to verify and dig down in even a better manner over there. So risk-based audit is all about analyzing all these audit risks. It helps you up in setting up your materiality threshold. So by materiality threshold, I simply mean that okay, if you are basically auditing a kind of a structure which is 1 crore company, then in a 1 crore company, even 10,000 or like 20,000 or even a lakh is very important. So even a lakh rupees is important as far as the materiality level is observed in that particular case. But if I'll talk about a company which is like having a turnover of almost like 2,000 crores, then in that particular company, not even 50 lakh rupees is an appropriate kind of measure to set as the materiality like threshold. Why? Because the kind of planning materiality it's basically depending upon the kind of turnover that your company is having, the kind of net profits that your company is having. So if it's like approximately like 2,000 crores, then in Big Fours usually it's like around 0.5% or 1% of the total revenue. So which is approximately like almost 10 crores. So that's way too high beyond any kind of such expectation. So it totally depends upon the kind of entity that you are auditing. So you can set your materiality threshold on accordance with that particular planning materiality revenue standards or be it net profit standards. That is one thing. And so that you can develop your audit program accordingly, so that you can finally allocate some larger portion of audit resources, be it your articles, be it your paid chartered accountants, more amount of paid chartered accountants to check out the some kind of areas which involve some higher risk. Okay, so that's all about risk based audit. It analyzes audit risk, helps you up in setting up the materiality threshold accordingly, and finally, in the same manner, it will help you up in development of your audit program in an appropriate manner, so that you can allocate your higher proportion and larger proportion of audit resources to high risk areas. So that's about risk based audit. Now, the next aspect that comes into the picture is the significance. So, what is the significance of risk based audit? So, number one, that is fulfillment of auditor's responsibility. Guys, the auditor has the responsibility to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements, whether caused by error or fraud. That's a different thing. So, there's a prime responsibility, okay, that an auditor needs to plan and perform those kind of audit in order to obtain the reasonable assurance that whether the financial statements are absolutely free from any kind of material misstatements or not, whether caused by error or fraud. So that is one thing which is one of the significance for risk-based audit. Next thing is that the auditor should perform an analysis of the audit risk that are going to impact on the auditee before undertaking any specific audit procedures. So all you need to do is analyze the complete audit risks which are going to impact the auditee's business. Okay, before you start about taking up any of the specific audit procedures, so you need to have the overall view of analysis of the audit risks that are going to impact the business of auditing. That is the second relevance, second significance of risk-based audit. The third one is no requirement of performing specific audit procedures on all areas of audit. Guys, you need to understand one thing, that audit is the basic limitation of audit is that the time paucity. So there is a possible paucity of time all the way. Okay, so there is always the shortage of such time. So you need to allocate your resources appropriately in that particular case. So an auditor need not perform the specific audit areas, audit procedures on all the areas of audit. We as auditors are only expected that we need to design our audit programs and procedures on areas which are earlier have been like identified as the major risks, so that we can provide them some of the better understanding and those risks which are going to affect the financial statements before being materially misstated. So we need to ensure and gauge our eyes on the kind of risks which have like already been identified as major ones in the past terms, and that doesn't mean that we don't have to render our responsibility as far as the new audit risk major areas are concerned. We need to do that, but wherein the smaller aspects are very few basic things are concerned, definitely an auditor shouldn't waste his or her time in that particular case. So there is no requirement to perform all the specific audit procedures on all the areas of audit. So you can leave the ones which are not going to affect the financial statements materiality in any of the cases. So that's how this is the thing which is going to provide you the significance of risk-based audit. One, it helps you up in fulfillment of your auditor's responsibility. Next, it asks you up that you need to have a complete analysis of the audit risks which are going to perform. Okay, and next thing, that you need to allocate your timing appropriately. Okay, as far as the risk-based audit is concerned, basically on the same lines as to what risk-based audit says. So there is no requirement to have the performance of all the specific audit procedures and all the areas of audit. That is not expected out of it. So that was the significance of risk-based audit. Now, many people usually ask me, sir, what is the basic benefit of risk-based audit? Okay, you are telling us that one should go for the risk-based audit. Okay, because there is no risk. If there is no risk, so definitely there is no kind of observation. So we won't be able to provide some kind of better quality to the client. That's right. But what are the benefits, sir? Tell us those. So I'll tell you guys. The first benefit is identification of misstatement. Risk-based audit basically focuses primarily on identification and assessment of the financial statement misstatement risks. So that is number one. That is the number one benefit of it. It helps you in identifying the misstatements. Next is the reduction of risk impact. Okay, so risk-based audit provides a framework to to reduce the impact of identified risks on the financial statements to an acceptable level before rendering an opinion on the financial statements. So, risk based audit is going to help you up in reducing the risk impact on the overall financial statements by making you aware of the kind of risks which are going on in the company, and definitely accordingly you can plan your work and provide some kind of relevant guidelines and suggestions to the client, and which will be like very much helpful for them before you render any of the opinion on your financial statements. So that is again reduction of the risk impact. Next is risk management. So RBA, that is risk based audit, it provides indicators of risk as a basis of opportunity for improvement of auditees, risk management and control processes. So that's again a kind of good benefit. It helps you up in making the risk management done appropriately and sufficiently. Third, like the fourth one now, that is performance improvement. So risk based audit affords an opportunity to the auditee to improve its operations based on the recommendation of the risks that do not have a current impact on the financial statements but impact the auditee's operational strategies and performance in the long run. So the basic objective of risk based audit is it helps you up in providing you the suggestions and recommendations that might not going to provide some kind of current or ongoing impact on your financial statements, but having said that, those recommendations and suggestions are definitely going to provide an impact on your operational strategies and performance in the long run as far as the auditee's business is concerned. So it helps you up in providing some of the performance improvement techniques as well. And the last one would be the framework. So risk analysis basically provides a framework for assurance in performing auditing. Awareness of areas that put the program and resources at risk from the point of view of economy, efficiency and effectiveness helps focus audit attention on them. So that is again a relevant aspect as far as the benefit of risk-based audit is concerned. So all this risk analysis basically is going to provide a framework for assurance in performance auditing. So that's how it's going to help you. So identification of misstatements, that's 1. Reduction of risk impacts, that's 2. Risk management, that's 3. Performance improvements, that's 4. And finally, the framework. These are the benefits of risk-based audit. I'm sure that you guys got the complete clarity as to how to go about, well, if you get the examination question in that particular thing. So how to take care of risk-based audit, what is risk-based audit, what are the significance of risk-based audit, and finally, what are the benefits that you can do while going about for any of the risk-based audit. Okay guys, let's move to our next topic, and that would be what is audit risk assessment. Wherever assessments comes, there has to be some kind of risk, and if I'm talking about risk assessment here, then that must be about audit risk management and audit risk assessment. Why? Because I'm teaching you audit. So what does audit risk assessment actually mean? So let's understand that first of all, guys. It is a basic risk that you as an auditor may unknowingly fail to appropriately modify your opinion on the financial statements that are materially misstatement. Supposedly, there is a situation wherein everything from the upper level, okay, from the top cream level, you can see inside the financial statement, and you see and you feel like, okay, everything is pretty much okay and fine with these financial statements. So there is not even a single indication with which you can think about that some of the misstatements are going on in that particular financial statement, or there is something which is wrong in it. So this is particularly that kind of situation wherein you as an auditor may unknowingly fail to appropriately modify your opinion. Why? Because you are just not aware of the fact that the financial statements that you are actually checking up, these are materially misstatement. So there might be a case that you end up providing the clean opinion or unqualified opinion as the technical language is concerned. So you might provide them the unqualified opinion on their financial statements, and thereby you won't be able to provide the relevant kind of opinion on that financial statements. So this is particularly that risk. It is the risk that the auditor may unknowingly fail to appropriately modify his opinion on the financial statements that are materially misstatement. You provided the unqualified opinion or clean report to them. However, the same should have been modified by providing either qualified or disclaimer or adverse opinion. So that could have been the case. So this is all about audit risk. Okay. Now, what about risk assessment? So risk assessment is a very subjective kind of process. Okay. It is a part of the professional judgment of the auditor and of the particular circumstances. So this is particularly the risk assessment. How you are going to find out the risk. That's not an objective type of a thing. So it depends entirely on varied and diversified businesses. So one business may have some kind of specific risk assessment, while another business might have, or maybe you'll have to like apply some kind of different risk assessment to that business. In case of example, so FMCG is altogether different from one which is going to provide you the service one. So both the companies are going to have some different kind of risk assessment. So it is basically part of your professional judgment as an auditor and of the particular circumstances. What might apply to an FMCG company or manufacturing company may not apply to a service industry. So accordingly, you need to judge wherever and what kind of scenario with which you are going to apply some of your audit assessments to them. That is number 2. Number 3 is audit risks are brought about by factors like error and fraud. So what are the kind of factors? Either it could be error or it could be fraud. Error is simply the unintentional mistake which results out of omission or by commission. By omission, I simply mean that there could be some legitimate transactions, okay, that are genuine enough, but you were not aware of it and you omitted the same, and the balances were like excluded from the financial statements. And by commission, I simply mean in that case that there are some erroneous transactions which have been done or included in the financial statements, though you didn't had the intention of doing so. So error is basically the unintentional mistake. Whereas in case of fraud, that is some kind of intentional misstatement. You knew it and you did it. So in the accounting records or supporting documents from which the financial statements are actually prepared. So it is intended to deceive the financial statement user or to conceal the misappropriations. So that is fraud. So error is absolutely different from fraud. And if I talk about the sources with which error can happen, so error risk may arise from an error of principle, error of estimate, critical information processing, financial reporting processes, disclosures. These are the things with which it can happen. And as far as the fraud risk is concerned, so fraud risk basically involves and includes manipulation, falsification, misrepresentation in the financial statements or events, and so on, misapplication of the accounting principles and misappropriation of funds. So that is all about fraud. So this is basically the difference between the two. So this is all about audit risk assessment. It is about the risk that auditor may unknowingly fail to appropriately modify his opinion on the financial statements that are materially misstatement. And it is a very subjective kind of a process. It is totally dependent upon the professional judgment of the auditor and of the particular circumstances. And these are particularly brought about by the factors like error and fraud. By error, I simply mean the unintentional mistake, and by fraud, I simply mean the intentional mistake. That was all about audit risk assessment, guys. I hope I was able to make you clear about the concept of it and you were able to understand it very well. Perfect, guys. Let's move to the other thing. That will be steps in the risk-based audit. So, what will be your plan? What will be your action plan if you go about taking care of risk-based audit in any of the company? First thing is first, you need to identify first of all the risk and accordingly prioritize the risk. That should be first thing. So, understanding your the auditee's operations, his business, his or her business, it is extremely important. You need to identify the auditee's operations first of all, which involves the processes for reviewing and understanding the auditee's risk management processes. That is number 1. Okay, you need to identify the business. Next, understand the auditee's strategies. What kind of framework of operations is he doing? What kind of operational performance? What kind of operational performance it is likely to provide? What are different kind of information process framework that is being utilized over there? All these things are going to help you identify and prioritize the audit related error and fraud risk, which are going to impact the audit of financial statements. That should be your second most priority. Next will be the environment. The environment basically in which the auditee operates. Is it the service sector, or is it the FMCG, or is it some kind of hotel industry? So you need to be aware of the kind of environment wherever your auditee is basically operating. the information which is required to monitor the changes in those environment, the process or the activities which are integral to the auditee's success in order to meet its objective are the key factors of any of the understanding of the audit risk. And the next would be that a performance review of auditee's delivery of service by comparing what are the expectations which are likely to be received by the client. However, against the same, you need to compare with the actual results that may also aid in understanding the agency's operation. So these are the things which you need to do in the first step, that is the identification and prioritization of risks. Now moving on to the next part, that is your next step, that is determination of residual risk. So assessment of management risk strategies and controls involves determination as to how controls within the auditee are designed. So you need to have that kind of assessment of the management risk strategies, wherein you will be able to know what kind of controls have been set up by the auditee in order to ensure that he or she runs the business in a well appropriate manner. So you need to identify those things. Internal audit is basically helping in promoting a sound accounting system and internal control. So it is the statutory auditor which is likely to evaluate the effectiveness of the internal audit to determine the extent to which a reliance can be placed upon in the conduct of substantive tests. So you need to have that kind of residual risk. You need to determine, okay, internal auditor has done his particular job completely. Now you need to assess the kind of understanding of internal auditor wherein you can rely on him. Okay, Mr. Y, who has qualified from the same kind of institute. Okay, so whether should I go about and take care of the things which are not being covered by him, or I should whether check his work as well. So you need to have that kind of an idea wherein you'll be deciding about the determination of the residual risk. Okay, that is the number second step. So moving on to third one, that is reduction of residual risk to an acceptable level. So you need to basically reduce the residual risk to a very good kind of acceptable level. So number one, what you should be doing. So guys, management of residual risk requires the design and execution of the risk reduction approach that is sufficient and effective to bring down the residual audit risk to a very good kind of a acceptable level. This basically includes the design and execution of necessary audit procedures and substantive testing to obtain the evidence in support of the transactions and balances. More resources should be allocated to areas of high audit risk, which were earlier identified through analytical procedures. Last year, you conducted some kind of audit and you got to know that this particular area is a very high audit risk area. So you need to take first of all the kind of precautions that you didn't took last year. So you need to have all your resources aligned and allocated to check whether the same high audit risk area is still categorized will be in a similar fashion be categorized in the same or high audit risk areas or not. So you need to be aware of that. So you need to reduce the residual risk to an acceptable level with this. And finally, you will be concluding your risk based audit while taking the reporting audit, which is likely to be provided to auditing, reporting audit results to auditing. So results of audit shall be communicated by auditor to auditee finally, because that is the person on behalf of whom you are actually doing the audit. You are providing the relevant and requisite services to auditing. So you need to provide the report results to auditee. Next, the kind of reportable items that include matters that have been observed even before the completion of audit, such as weakness in some kind of internal control system, deficiencies in design, operations of internal controls that are going to affect the organization's ability to record, process, summarize, and report the financial data. So you need to report all these items as well, which haven't been which have been observed. However, the same were not communicated to the auditee earlier, but you had an opportunity to find out those before the completion of your audit. So any kind of weakness in your internal control system, any of the deficiency in the system, or in operation of internal controls, which is particularly going to affect the organization's ability to record, process, or summarize. So you need to have that kind of reporting forwarded to auditee as well. So these were the steps in risk-based audit. You need to identify and prioritize your risks. Next, you need to determine the residual risk. Finally, you need to reduce that residual risk to some acceptable level. Finally, you need to report your audit results to the auditee. I'm sure that you guys got the complete clarity with some appropriate examples wherein you can evaluate as to how and how to go about with a particular case wherein you get a chance to write about the steps of risk-based audit. Perfect, guys. With this, let's move to the next topic, and that will be what is energy audit? This question was again asked in CA final examination for May 2010. So, what does energy audit actually mean? So, guys, before understanding what is energy audit, let's discuss about it very briefly. Okay, so I'll provide you an example before starting this topic because I want you to understand this complete concept with that simple meaning. Okay, let's take an example of your father first. Your father is running some kind of business, okay, and he is running that particular business with the help of some electricity. Okay, so water business or maybe hydro power business, and that requires enormous amount of energy. By energy, I simply mean enormous amount of electricity, the power. So this particular audit is absolutely for your father. Okay, so you need to understand that. And if I'm telling you this thing, and if your father is running any kind of such kind of businesses, definitely do interact on this topic with your father as well. Okay, he must be able to relate to this topic because you are the person who is going to study it. He is actually the person who has been like observing the same past so many years now. So that is something with which I'll be making you help in understanding this concept very well in that manner. So this is all about energy audit. Let's understand the meaning of it. So guys, energy management or energy audit, if I'll quote it in the word of institute, that is energy audit. It is basically an activity that assesses the energy use pattern of a factory or energy consuming equipment and identify the energy saving opportunities. Let's suppose you were running your factory in the last month, the energy amount which was consumed for that particular period was like, let's say 10,000 units. For this month, it was 12,000. And for the coming month, it could be like around 15,000. So by seeing this particular pattern, what do you understand? That your energy use is actually getting increased day in, day out. The same is being in an increasing trend. Okay, last month it was 10,000. This month it's 12,000. The coming month it would be 15,000. So that is something which is the energy use pattern. How about if there is a particular person who is going to tell you that, sir, the kind of way that you are using your energy, that's absolutely wrong, and you are doing some kind of wastage. Okay, unnecessary machines are running on, unnecessary electricity is being wasted over there in these two particular months. So who is that person? We as an auditor are going to provide them, and what will be the suggestions that will be provided to them in this kind of an audit. So all this will be covered under energy audit or energy management, how to manage the energy. So it is basically an activity which is going to assess the energy use pattern of a factory or energy consuming equipment and identifies the energy saving opportunities. So that's all about energy audit. Now the next thing would be about the approaches. So what are the possible approaches for energy management? You yourself know it very well, guys. First, reduce all kind of avoidable losses. Repeat after me. Reduce avoidable losses. All kind of avoidable losses that can be avoided. Simple. So that should be number one. Number two, improve yourself on energy use efficiency and effectiveness. Simple. So improving any kind of energy use efficiency and effectiveness, that's going to be your approach to energy management. This is the same thing which we use in our day-to-day life as well. Don't you see our mothers or our father usually tell us, okay, whenever you leave from this room, definitely do not forget to switch off your lights. Why do they say that? They usually say that simply on the basis of one thing, that they need to and they wish to reduce any kind of avoidable losses. So this is something which can be avoided. Okay, you can just avoid the loss on this irregular or unacceptable kind of energy use pattern. It's absolutely not required, so you can avoid it. So reducing all those avoidable losses and improving energy use efficiency and effectiveness. That is about approach. The next thing comes in, that is steps in energy management. So what should be your step in energy management? First of all, conduct energy audits from time to time. So that should be the first thing. You as an auditee basically are aware of the fact that you are just paying the bills, okay, of energy, the kind of energy which is being consumed by your company. So the factory, so you are just paying those bills. But if those bills are like bill amounts are actually getting increased with each month, coming month, So you need to understand this fact that energy audit is basically very important for your entity. Why? Because the energy costs are getting increased with each month passing by. So you need to understand that. So one thing, energy management's first step would be the conduct of energy audits. Next would be the implement the energy conservation measures. So you need to conserve that energy. So you need to implement all those energy conservation measures in place. Switch off the lights whenever that's not under use. Okay. Uh, Wear some kind of protection on wherever you work in any kind of factory. Okay. Whenever a bigger machine is not like running, so you can keep that on standby mode. So these are the few things which you can do. If it's a IT setup, so whenever you leave from your seat, you need to lock your computer, and you can press F7 so that you can lights out basically your PC or your laptop in that case. So that is another kind of energy conservation measure. Next will be the carry out of post installation monitoring. So that is again something you've like already set up or installed some of the procedures and processes on place. Now you need to assess the kind of post installation monitoring, whether the same is being like installed currently correctly or not. So is there some kind of correction which is required to be done? Okay, so that can happen accordingly. So that is the third step. Next would be setting up of the targets for energy conservation. So you need to set up the targets. Why have you seen that in many of the corporate houses it is basically like written over there? Okay, save light, save this, save this, save this. Why it's been written over there? Why? Because they have actually set a kind of target for energy conservation. So you need to set your targets. Now that this current month's unit used was 10,000. Now I have to get down to or bring down those units to an acceptable level, that is 9,000 for this month. So you need to set your targets on that energy conservation. So that's the extremely important kind of a case. So steps in energy management: conduct the energy audits. Next, implement the energy conservation measures. Third, carry out the post installation programming and monitoring. And finally, set the targets for energy conservation. Perfect, guys. With this, lastly, I'll brief you up on phases of energy audit. So what are the different phases? Number one will be the historical data analysis. Remember, with my first example, I told you that my last month's bill was 10,000. Okay, this month 12,000, coming month 15,000. So what did I do? I first of all told you something about my historical data. That was about past. So you need to consider the overall factory as a mere black box, okay, wherein you'll be identifying different forms of energy going into the boundary and the products which are leaving it over the given period. So analyze the past performance of factory. It was 10,000 in the past month. So you need to understand, make correlation with past month to this month and this month to coming. So analyze the past performance of the factory in relation to energy consumption and management by review of historical energy consumption and cost data. So that is something about historical data analysis. Next will be about the preliminary energy audit. So preliminary energy audit is basically done just to identify the major energy consuming equipment and processes, obvious inefficiencies and energy wastes, and finally the priority areas for further detailed investigation. So you make any kind of preliminary energy audit majorly and broadly on behalf of like finding out the major energy consuming equipments. What are the major consumption equipments, major energy consumption equipments which are going on in the company? You have like approximately 10 machines, and there is just one machine which is like outdated and it consumes a lot of energy. So you need to identify that first of all. So what are the major energy consuming equipments which are available in the factory? Next will be about the obvious kind of review of inefficiencies and energy waste. So what are the recurring and inefficient kind of energy waste which is going on like month by month? So you need to understand that secondly. And finally, you need to allocate your resources for finding the priority areas for detailed further investigation. So what are those areas wherein detailed further investigation is actually required? So that is something about this preliminary energy audit. Energy efficiency basically indicators can be identified with the help of increase in consumption of energy inputs and the production rate, and with the help of variation in specific energy consumption with time and production rate. And finally, This particular preliminary energy audit stage will get completed by assessing the comparative figures of past with the figures which have been like obtained in current month or with the average values. So like for the past 3 months or 8 months, you can take that. So that's going to happen in this particular preliminary energy audit. And then you will have to move towards the detailed energy audit finally. So this detailed energy audit is going to include and involve each kind of technical and economic analysis of energy efficiency measures, particularly those which are going to involve a huge amount of capital outlay or long payback periods. So we need to have that kind of detailed energy audit done. And if there is any kind of scope for reduction in specific energy consumption, then you as an energy auditor should perform the preliminary and or a detailed energy audit for analyzing different utility areas where these energies are going to be converted into final forms required by the production processes. So that's how you as an auditor can discharge your duties as far as detailed energy audit is concerned. I hope you guys got the complete clarity as to what should be done whenever you get a query in the examination relating to energy audit. This question was asked in CA final examination for May 2010. Energy management and energy audit is an activity that assesses the energy use pattern of a factory or energy consuming equipment and identifies the energy saving opportunities. The approaches are pretty much simple: avoid any kind of avoidable losses, reduce basically avoidable losses, and improve on the energy use efficiency and effectiveness. Steps will be: conduct the energy audits from time to time, implement the energy conservation measures, carry out the post-installation monitoring, and set targets for energy conservation. And finally, you'll have to move towards the phases, how to do about the same. First of all, historical data analysis, then moving on to preliminary energy audit, and finally concluding with detailed energy audit. Perfect guys, let's move to the next topic, the last topic of this presentation. And that will be, what are the key functions of the energy auditor? This question was asked in CA final examination for May 2004 and November 2011. Number 1. So generally guys, the energy auditor of any of the company or industry is basically an external party. Usually CAs, lawyers and other people are going to get appointed. Not lawyer basically, so CAs and engineers. So engineers and CAs are going to get appointed, and the more probability of getting appointment as an energy auditor is for the engineers. Why? Because they know that technical environment very well. So there are like some of the kind of key functions for energy auditor. Number 1, quantify the energy cost and quantities. First of all, you need to have anything about energy cost in detail with the help of the figures. Okay, so you need to quantify the energy cost and quantities. Number 1. Next will be correlation of the trends of production or activity to energy cost. So you need to correlate the trends of production. Okay, last month I was able to produce like 1000 units, and this month I was able to produce like 12,000 units. 1000 and 12,000. So 1000 is pretty much lower as to if I'll compare about 12,000. So 12,000 is far higher number as compared to 1000. So definitely in that case, definitely my energy will be like consumed in a higher manner in that case. So larger consumption of energy will be required in that case. So you need to correlate the trends of production and the activity to energy cost. So first you need to quantify. You need to have this kind of amount. Last month 10,000, this month 12,000, now 15 in the next month. So you need to have that kind of quantify of that energy cost. Next, you need to correlate the trends of production. Last month it was 1000, now it's 12,000. So it's going to increase like drastically. Next will be the device energy database formats. So that is something which is again a key function for energy auditor. So as an auditor, you need to devise some of the energy database formats to ensure that they depict the correct picture by product, by department, and by consumer. So this is again an important function of energy auditor. Next will be the advise and check on the compliance of the organization for policy and regulation aspects. So you need to revise and check compliance of the organization as far as the policy and regulation aspects are concerned. Next will be about the highlighting. So you need to highlight the areas that need attention for detailed investigation. as per you as an auditor, there is some kind of problem or obstacle the company is facing on some kind of issue. Okay, but the company is not aware of it. Okay, so you as an auditor need to highlight that area, that particular area that is going to be that needs some kind of attention for detailed investigation. So that is again a thing of key function for energy auditor. Next will be the conduct of preliminary and detailed audits. So now again, as a key function of energy auditor, this is an extremely important step. So you need to conduct the preliminary and detailed audits. Number one, data collection and analysis. First thing is first, you need to collect the data first of all, and then only you can analyze on it. Next will be about the measurements, mass and energy balances. So what are the energy balances which are going on? 10,000, 12,000, 15,000. So what is it all about? What are the measurements? By measurements, I simply mean that okay, it's all about 1,000 units, 2,000 units, 3,000 measurements. So next will be about the reviewing of energy procurement practices. So identify all those energy efficiency projects and techno-economic evaluation. So this is likely to be done in that case. Next will be establishing an action plan. So establishing action plan including energy saving targets, staffing requirements, implementation of the time requirements, procurement issues, details and cost estimates. So this needs to be done. So you need to establish an action plan as to how you'll go about taking care of the organization as an energy auditor. So you need to establish your action plan in that case, by which includes energy saving targets, staffing requirements, implementation time requirements, how much time it will take, how many people are required to be recruited for the same. All these things need to be done. And finally, concluding it with recommendation on the goal setting. So by recommendation on goal setting for energy saving, I simply mean about the record keeping, reporting, energy accounting, what all other organization requirements can be done in that case. So this is some kind of recommendation as far as the goal setting is concerned. So this was all about key function of energy auditor. Quantify the energy costs and quantities, correlate trends of organization production or activity to energy costs, devise energy database formats, advise and check compliance of organization for policy and regulation aspect, highlight the areas that need attention for detailed investigation, and finally conduct the preliminary and detailed audits. I hope you guys got the complete clarity with respect to whatever things I did told you and taught you in this particular presentation. So do revise your topics with time so that you don't have to flunk in your C1 examination. That's an essential kind of prerequisite in order to ensure that you sail through. So do revise. I'll be concluding my video with the dose of motivation, and that will be the man who can drive himself farther once the effort gets painful is the man who will win. Roger Bannister is the person who quoted this statement. Perfect, guys. So you need to take step on the same kind of lines as well. Thank you on behalf of the Edupedia world. Keep interacting via questions, queries in YouTube comment boxes.